Hi, and welcome to Let's Talk with Parul. A very well-known author once said, "No society can exist without myth, as it creates notions of right and wrong, good and bad, heaven and hell, rights and duties." But when the times are all about logic and reasoning, myth-busting, how can mythology play a part in our lives? Luckily for me, I have that very well-known author as a guest on today's episode of Let's Talk with Parul. Please welcome Devdutt Pattanaik, mythologist, author, illustrator, speaker. Thank you so much, Devdutt, for joining us today.
Thank you, Parul, for inviting me.
We all know Devdutt as for his bestsellers such as My Gita, Jaya, Sita, Business Sutra, and the Seven Secrets series, amongst others. We also know him for his TV shows, Business Sutra and Devlok. He's written over 1,000 columns, been a TEDIndia speaker, and he consults with organizations on culture, diversity, leadership. Today, we're going to be asking him questions about parenting and the role of mythology. Specifically, can we raise children to understand mythology and culture in this digital age? So we're going to get rolling straight away, Devdutt. There are lots of questions which have already come in from our viewers, and we're looking forward to a lot of, to and fro, because I know there are lots of schools of thought on this, and some of our moms have already expressed that. So let's get rolling with Anju's question. Anju Gilotra wanted to know very broadly, and I think it's a great place to start, what is the relevance of mythology in this world of science and technology?
So science and technology has always existed. We had the wheel. Wheel is a technology. So you can't live without science and technology. But we also have questions that we cannot answer. What happens after death? Why was I given a male body or a female body? Why was I born in this family? Any question with why, science cannot answer. Science can only answer how and what. But why questions? Why is my mother this way? Or, you have a child who's a single parent child saying that why do I have a single parent? Not everything can be explained easily. Or why do I have a disability? Or why does my friend have a disability? Or why does my sister or sibling have a disability? How do you explain it? You will need the help of something else that science cannot offer. Science won't comfort you. And therefore, you need stories. And therefore, you need stories. Why am I poor? Why am someone else rich? Why do I have my parents dropping me to school in a car, but I see other people who don't have a car? How do you explain these things? And, these are complex. Why was I born in this family? A simple question. And you have no answer. So you need magic.
Magic. Okay. So this brings me, in fact, Madhubala had a question which was relating to this directly. She says that I would not want to teach mythology to children. Let them grow up and learn it through literature. I would not want to stuff their minds with anything that would hinder the growth of their scientific temperament. So, it comes back to this whole thing of science and reasoning, etc. You have a background in science. You're trained in medicine. You worked for over a decade and more in the healthcare and pharma industries. So you've kind of seen both sides of it, both sides of the coin, your hobby as it started in mythology, your interest in mythology, as well as the practical scientific part of life. In your mind, how were you able to resolve this? If at all, if you can call it a conflict, how were you able to resolve it?
Usually you don't understand.
It's not a conflict.
So, for example, a child is running and the child falls on the ground. You'll see a parent hitting the ground and saying the bad ground has hit the child.
Yes.
Now, that's not logical, is it?
That's not logic, yeah.
Or if you're telling your child, eat the bird, when you're feeding the child, you start telling things like, oh, look, the bird is going to come and eat it, because you have to get the food into the child's mouth. The child is being very stubborn at that time. So logic doesn't work. If logic worked, we wouldn't marry the husbands we have, really, in most cases. We follow.
I can already see a lot of likes.
So if logic worked, then our parents are always right? And our parents were never right, because the parents always said they are logical. So every parent thinks they're logical. Ask the children. They think that parents are stupid. So logic is a very funny word. I have met people who have the most illogical ideas, who believe they're logical. Science is about evidence, and science basically says, I don't know everything. Science doesn't know what happens after death. When the child asks you if there's a death in the family, where have they gone? What answer will you give? What scientific answer will you give? You have no scientific answer. Why do you bury the dead? Why do you cremate the dead? You have no scientific answer. Really, a dead body should be thrown in the garbage bin and the next day collected by garbage collectors logically, or sent to a medical institution for anatomical studies.
Research or whatever, right?
Yeah. Let me see you do that to a loved
Mhm.
one if you're so
Yeah.
logical. So, when people, we give ourselves this kind of crown that we are a logical person. Nobody is logical. I have not yet met a single logical person, because otherwise we wouldn't be greedy and ambitious. We would be happy with the money we have, but greed and ambition, separate the two.
Hmm.
You can't separate the two. Greed is just another word for ambition. Why do you need 3 cars when you have 2 members in the family? Uh, Explain, why do you need a house with 50,000 square feet land when you really need? There's no logic. So all those aspirations, dreams that we have really come from
Really.
our insecurities, and our insecurities need myth and magic.
But I mean, I'm not yet convinced, so not moving away from this point right now. When we are talking to our children for everything else in life, we say, okay, think about it, reason it out. That's what modern parenting is all about, to sit and explain things to your children right from the time they are, well, as long as from the time they can communicate with us. So communicate, keep talking to them, explain things, understand why they're feeling a certain way. And then we say that, ऐसा ऐसा हुआ था, इस कहानी में एकदम से, पहाड़ का ये बन गया, or some, whatever the story is. So logic, okay, fine, I can keep that aside. But how do I correlate my parenting style, which is primarily trying to explain the realities of things, and then I get into storytelling of, at a very fantastical level? Can I correlate the two?
See, children will always have fantasies. Like, they want parents to be better than what they are. They feel food can be better. They believe. So, fantasy is part of human imagination. When you deny people fantasy, you're denying them imagination. And that's what happens to children. It's like what the Soviet Union would do. They would sort of prevent you from imagining a better life. Happily ever after is about a better life. That
Right.
there is heaven out there. So when it's like, if you go through crisis, try to get yourself out of crisis through logic. You will never be able to. I've always noticed that people who talk about atheism and logic usually come from affluent backgrounds. When you are in
Those who
crisis,
have the luxury to think
the
about those things.
luxury to say things that
Sure, sure. हाँ, हमें फर्क
or you have so much money that terrified that it'll all go away one day. So then suddenly Babaji's become important, and you go after you. Who is funding these cults of Babajis? Extremely affluent, educated people, IIT, IIM, Stanford, and they go and listen to Babajis talking fantasy things like soul and aura and magical things coming out, and sitting in front of them are scientists. Why? Because why is Harry Potter such a successful book? Because it takes
Absolutely.
you out of the, why do you need a magic wand? Because you don't know how to deal with your insecurities. And insecurities are not logical. No insecurity in the world is logical. Taste is not logical. Why do you like sweets? Why do you like golden deer? Why does Sita like a golden? Is
When
it
you know
wrong?
it's bad for you, why would you have something? Why would you smoke? Why would you have, overindulgence of sweets? You
Oh,
already
yeah.
know it's bad for you. So
Why
yeah,
would a woman have 5 husbands? It's wrong, no?
exactly. So
Or
in fact, in your book, I mean, I was just looking at all your books. So in the Boys Who Fought, you it's a beautiful illustration of the story of Mahabharata for children. And along with the story, from time to time, you've questioned that, I am suddenly a wife to 5 husbands. Is this dharma? So, at what point can I make a child understand this whole concept? Is it through questions like this? Because they never really get answered. At the end of the day, yes, you have correlated some of the, the when the conclusion of the story, and you have tried to correlate some of those values and everything. But questions of, why did Ekalavya have to lose his thumb? For example, at the end of the day, it's not justified. It still seems to a child is wrong. And these are highly acclaimed characters in the story who have actually done adharma. So how do I explain that concept to a child?
So it's a lie. So You see, look at the word. You use the word justice. Now, justice is not a rational concept. It's a mythological concept. It doesn't exist in the world. It's a construct in your head. It
It's
does
a
not.
utopian concept. We would like it to exist, but it doesn't.
Yeah, it's a concept. The moment it's a concept, it comes into the realm of mythology. It's not real.
Okay.
You want there to be fairness in the world, but you know there is no fairness in the world. You can work very hard for an exams and somebody else gets the position. So we are surrounded by a world where things don't make sense to us. Why should stories make sense to us? You're preparing your child for disappointment. You're preparing your child that sometimes you'll get what you want, but not all the time.
Right.
Sometimes things will not make sense, and your parents don't know all the answers, and it's okay not to know all the answers. You
I
don't need
have a statement, in fact, a question from Arun. He says, do we need to have the answers to all the questions?
No. You never will. I mean, even if you need to have, you can have a need, but you'll never have answers. People are cruel.
Yeah.
Children are bullies. Why
Yes.
are children bullies? And the gentlest of people will have children who are cruel. And you're shocked because the parents are so gentle and the children are cruel. You can't explain these things, so you don't need to give answers. So many people ask me questions and said, why do you carry the burden of answers? Why do parents carry the burden of answers? You cannot control the destiny of your child, no matter which school you send them to and how you bring them up. You cannot control their destiny, their disappointments, their heartbreaks. They will go on their own journey, and
Right.
you will have to deal with the fact when they reject your ideas, your thoughts. You may believe in something and they will not believe in it. And that's when you have to deal with the fact that the child will become an adult and find his own way and find his own home and find his own values. So these are things, the stories, the moment the stories try to tell you, and I'm very careful with stories which try to tell children what they should think, then you're indoctrinating the child. The child is not a domesticated animal that you're trying to control and say that you should think this way, this is the right way to think. You're enabling him gently with what you feel is the best approach to life. But they will figure it out themselves with a little help from you, without a little help from you, with a little help from teachers, sometimes on their own. And that's painful sometimes to realize the child
That's
is thinking.
painful. I was just going to say that's probably the hardest part of parenting, to see your child making those mistakes right in front of you.
And
So
that's the way it is. I mean, if you have a daughter or a son, they'll go through heartbreak. They'll have crush and infatuation. That's part of life, and you just have to prepare them, equip them to the best of it. And that's what stories are supposed to do.
yeah, so coming back to that relevance, yes.
Yeah. So that's the purpose of the story. It's not to say it's right and wrong. It's to say this is what some people think is right.
Okay, right. So basically, you're probably being able to present a different perspective. You're probably being able to put a difficult situation into a third party's perspective and present it. Sometimes it's easier. Sometimes just talking to a child and telling them that, look, what you're doing may not be quite right is useless. It's like hitting your head against a wall. But so this is what the tool can be used as. I mean, I'm just trying to work it out in my own head.
That's the reason, one of the things that we have done, I've tried to work on creating different kinds of games. Now, why have I created games? Because gamification is, people keep talking about gamification. Like, they say that Jnaneshwar invented the snake and ladder game to teach about karma. So snake and ladder game was invented in India to teach you about karma. Ludo was invented to teach you that it's a mixture of skill and luck. So Ludo was invented in India because people want to teach what is, sometimes it's luck and sometimes it's skill, and it's a mixture of the two. Chess was invented in India because it is purely strategy. It is no luck there at all. So games were created. So now we're creating games, epic with epically. I'm working on these ideas to help people understand money, because schools don't teach children about money. But how to teach them about money. So it's not about Ramayana or Mahabharata. It's about, these are vehicles to, Lakshmi is a vehicle to understand money. Saraswati is a vehicle to understand about knowledge. Durga is a vehicle to understand about power. Shiva is a vehicle to understand about not wanting things. Indra is a vehicle to understand about hedonism and, having a great time and partying and being crazy. Vishnu is a vehicle to understand about helping people and how helping those who don't want to be helped, or helping people who don't realize you're trying to help them. So it's not, the problem is we sort of get trapped in these words, Ram and Sita. That's not important. That
Yes.
is just a way of getting them. So when you go to a temple, it's a way of explaining. अच्छा किसी के घर में जाते हो तो कुछ लेके जाते हो हाथ में, तो चढ़ावा लेके जाते हो. You don't go without anything. You take a gift with you. It looks nice. It's decent when you go to someone's house and carry a gift in your hand. Don't just go and eat the food in their house. Go and take something. तो आप चढ़ावा देते हो और प्रसाद लेते हो. So now you learn something about exchange. So it's not, you learn about art. When you go to temple, you see artwork. You are exposed to artwork. You are exposed to ritual. खाना कैसे परोसते हैं, left hand से या right hand से. So these all things are part of a ritual structure. देखो भगवान भी रोज नहाते हैं. Every morning there's a abhishek ritual happening. Every day, oh, abhi bhagwan ko sone ko do. So even God goes to sleep. So you're learning these techniques. It's it's part of your life. These are very cleverly framed things to give meaning. Birthday party hota hai, that's a ritual. Birthday is not a natural, it's not a logical ritual. It's like think about it. Is it logical?
That's right.
Put a cake in front of you, put candles on top of it, light fire, and then breathe out, and then the spit falling on it, and then you cut it, and you give this unhygienic thing to everybody, and everybody eats it. And I'm like, what's logical in it? There's nothing logical, but it's fun. But we love it, we enjoy it, and if you don't throw a birthday party, the children will feel upset. I mean, they're not important, that means. They don't matter. So, these things are rituals, stories, symbols, games. These are all ways by which we enable children, nourish children.
Yeah, that's a really interesting perspective. I don't think I've thought about it so deeply. And surely the cake and the candles are out thanks to COVID. So we might just get back into some kind of traditional birthday celebration. And we look forward to a story from you on that, perhaps. Saudamini, I hope... Sorry, no, I was just saying that Swadamini had a question about logic and mythology, and I'm hoping that would be answered by now, because certainly I think logic has very little a place in our lives. If by the looks of it, a lot of things that we do are straight from impulse. And like you said, various impulses like, greed and whatever else, rather than logic. So yeah, I hope that question is answered. Sorry, I interrupted you. You were saying something.
No, I said that people don't know the traditional way in which birthdays were celebrated. So in a traditional birthday, you treat the child as God for a day. So you are supposed to garland them, and you're supposed to put a crown on their head, and you're supposed to do aarti for the child and remind them of their good qualities, which is what you do during aarti. During aarti, you tell God ki aap itne achhe ho, aapne ye kiya hai. So you have to tell the child that, you are very good in mathematics, but you're not so good in English, but you are good with your sister, and you're not so good with your cousins. And you tell them their qualities so that they're aware of themselves. And then you cook food, what is their favorite on that day. So the traditional birthday celebration was actually treating you the way, children nowadays, men and women are treated during weddings. So on the wedding day, they're treated as special and they are given a lot of importance. That's what a birthday was supposed to be traditionally, till the day you got married. After you get married, you are not allowed, birthdays were not celebrated. Your child's birthday will be celebrated. That's how you pass it on. So that's how the cycle of life would continue. So every birthday, you are treated as a special person on that day. So they would put har. Even Parsis, even today, if you go to a Parsi household, because they adopted Indian customs, they still practice it. I've seen my Parsi friends go through the ritual where the mother will do the puja of the child, do the nazar utarna and do the flower, and all that thing is done. Again, it's not rational at all. None of it is rational, but it feels good. You feel nice. You feel special.
I think modern psychology would agree with this, because that's exactly what we keep saying, that, along with the brickbats, make sure the bouquets go. And sometimes as parents, we forget. So birthdays, and, you just mentioned this thing about, garlanding the child and all of that. My grandmother used to start every birthday with a tika, a little prayer, and prasad, halwa ka prasad or something like that. So I'm just going back into time now. I've continued the halwa prasad, but everything else has been forgotten. So, ritual.
What has happened is, during the British times, the notion of God outside you became popular. But traditionally in India, God is to be seen inside you. So inside the child, inside the parent, inside the tree, inside the book, inside the pet. If you have a pet in the house, the pet also has jivatma. So there's a special day for the animal and a special day for the bird if you have a plant in your house. So when you do Tulsi Puja, you're helping child appreciate trees. So they get botany. And, I understand, I never studied these subjects, but mythology forced me to look at the stars. It looked at constellations. I started studying about, Purnima and Amavas and what does the calendar look like, and Tulsi Puja and Vatavriksha and Durvagra. So botany becomes important. The Vahanas, which I'm recently published a book on Vahanas and Pashu, was to help people understand animals. So zoology becomes important. So you are really, even though the child is 7 years old or 6 years old, is not already being exposed to scientific things like plants, animals, pot, water, wind, fire. But it's done in a very informal way. It's done in a very casual, friendly way. But by the time the child starts studying physics, chemistry, biology, it's already familiar
There
with
is
these.
a relevance. Yeah, there is some kind of a context.
Like Ashoka tree. Everybody says Sita was sitting under an Ashoka tree, but I don't think any parent has taken them to see how an Ashoka tree looks. And in Delhi, you have those trees. We live in this concrete jungle, but help your children go and see an Ashoka tree or a Vata Vriksha, the tree under which Buddha sat, or the Durva grass which grows, and why is it different? And the Kusha grass, after whom Ram's son is called Kusha. So what is Kusha grass? How is Kusha grass different from Durva grass? We don't take our children to museums and help them see artwork. I met this gentleman from Singapore who said we have to save Indian artwork from America. So I said, okay, we met, of all places, we met in New Jersey. And then I said, okay, have you seen the local museum here? Have you taken your daughter to the museum? Because they've got very good art from the Chola period. And he had no answer. I said, you want to save Indian culture, but you will not have the courage to take your daughter on a weekend, this daddy time, because you never do everything the mother does. So can you at least take your daughter to the museum and have a conversation on Chola bronze art? And then he kept quiet. I said, see, that's what culture is. Culture is good. It's not having a Nataraj statue in your house which costs $1 million. It's about taking your child, sharing your heritage, and saying that we lived in India, now we are in US, but that's okay. Let's learn US culture. Let's learn Indian culture. I think that honesty is what children enjoy. I feel whenever I don't have children of my own, but I spend a lot of time with school kids, and I realize initially they look at me with great hostility, and then I start telling things about my life and my insecurities and issues, and they just love it. They are like, okay, he's one of us now. Now it's okay. So you have to connect with them it's emotion really. At mythology, at a fundamental level, is dealing with psychology.
Yes, absolutely.
In a very fun way. So you see Sita's, you have to tell the children stories in that way. You have to tell them, imagine if somebody abducts you and takes you away. How do you feel? So that is somebody told me, a little kid, but I like Ravan. So I said, oh, so you like being locked up in the house? Somebody will take you away from your mummy and lock you up in the house. It's okay. So no, I will not like it. I said, that's what Ravan did to Sita. Is that okay? And then he started to think, I've done my job. That's all I've done. I've not told him anything. I didn't say he was wrong. I just said, is it okay if I take you from your home to someone else and lock you away? Is it okay? And he thinks, and I think that's all a teacher can do. We can't do anything more than that. I mean, he may still come and say, no, I think Ravan was great. That's what you can do. But you try to help them understand consent at a young age. Nowadays we have to teach, especially boys need to learn how to respect women, which is unfortunately in our society not a very main agenda, which has to be an important agenda.
I think that's great. You've really presented a perspective that a lot of us may not have looked at, and I can see it from the comments coming. Rajneet says, love this discussion, especially on my birthday. Happy birthday, Rajneet. And the Sarita says, it's Devdutt sir, it's so glad to hear you explaining the logics behind every belief on this auspicious day of Kojagiri Purnima. Sharad Purnima, I'm guessing, yeah. So, I think it's really, from the time that my grandmother told me the stories to the time that I am telling these stories to my children, there has to be a change. You said that, that even Indian scriptures believe in change along with time, space, and place. Is that right?
Yeah.
And I think I've understood some amount of that, the way you're explaining it, that today I have to take mythology as, with some aspects of psychology, like you just mentioned, and treat it as a more of an opening of the horizons rather than top-down approach of telling a story, aise hua tha, bas yahi hai, end of story. Moral hai, moral seekho.
Yeah,
that may be relevant for, it may be interesting for a child of say 6, 7, 8, 9, what do we do with these teenagers? Because at some stage they're just too cool for this. It's not something which they have fun reading. They don't want to be seen reading, or even watching mythology. So anything that we can do with the teenagers.
See, one, I don't think a parent should carry the burden that they have to teach it to their children. One, I think that
Right.
burden should never be there. Children will do things that make them feel strong and powerful. That's what they want. They will never go towards things that don't make them cool, that don't make them powerful. If they feel the books make them feel stronger and powerful, they will go after it naturally. So a manga makes them powerful, they were going to read a manga. They were going to read one of those Japanese things because that's the cool thing to mix with friends. What doesn't change for any human being, no matter how young, old, rich, poor, gender, doesn't matter, is that we all are full of doubts and insecurities. The key, you'll see me repeating the word insecurity again and again.
Yes,
Because
yes, yes.
that word is the magic word. Because no human being is confident. The only human being who's confident is a psychopath. That's the
Oh.
only person who's confident. So when you person, be very careful of these people because they're dangerous people. Or they're stupid because life has so many uncertainties. Even you drive on the road, some weird thing can happen over which you have no control. I have friends who have walked on the road and suddenly from some building a brick falls and hits them very badly, and you have done nothing. You're just walking. So we don't live in a world where anything is certain. So what happens with the older kids is that the more you push it, then they get power in rejecting you. That's what they do. They get power in rejecting you. And I think conversations should be there, and the books, and also help. Like when I wrote The Girl Who Chose,
Yes.
I was talking the word choice. And now normally we're not told Sita as a girl who chooses. But Ramayana talks about
Right.
5 choices she makes, which are not exposed to. That Sita actually makes 5 choices in the Ramayana. It's not my own creation. It's what Valmiki has said. It's just that in the 21st century, I have adapted the story so that you pay attention to this word choice. Or when children are bullies, bullying is a very big question. And I looked at the Mahabharata and said, hey, can I look at this as a story of bullying? The Kauravas are bullies who are not sharing their property with their brothers. And how difficult it is to share things. It's not so simple. It's not so simple. The story is very complex. But it's about bullying and sharing. Now that's adapting it to the current generation. So when I'm talking to a teenager now, I will also find his issues. Now at that age, they're going through, their bodies changing. They're becoming mature. Hormones are happening. So you have to have those conversations which are really uncomfortable. And mythology allows you to have those conversations rather easily because you have Draupadi with 5 husbands, and you have, and that leads you to humorous conversations, but it makes you question, is it right? Is it wrong? How do you deal with multiple partners? Do you heartbreak? How do you deal with rejection? So you use this third party to create conversations about sexuality, gender, sex education. All those things will come into the conversation. It will be funny. It is also safe because it's not, in a way, you're doing religious conversation, but actually telling them about their body. And it's about and really, when you look at some of these stories, they're quite explicit. Of course, you tame it down. I write it in a tamed manner, but that's what happens as you grow older. They talks about giving up, loneliness, all these issues. The stories talk in different ways. At different times of our lives, we connect with one part of the story. We don't connect with other parts of the story. When we're angry, the story gives us something. When we're happy, the story gives us something. So that's what you do. And these characters, when I say, don't be a mantra, or don't be a, so what is mantra? What does he mean? Don't be a mantra. Oh, that one is like a Kaikai. Your friend, that one, that is like a Hanuman. That one is like a Lakshman. So they are like, okay, this is an interesting way of looking. It's code words between parents. अरे वो तो mantra है, वो तो Kaikai है, वो तो दुर्योधन है, वो तो Drishta. These are metaphors for explaining concepts. But the child's mind is also evolving because he's able to see complexities in stories. So you're really helping a child mature. Rather than telling them, you're enabling them to grow, think, ask. I think that's the best gift a parent can give a child. Critical thinking, critical empathy. Not just critical thinking, critical empathy. That's very, and I think stories allow us to do that without getting into the messy details.
I think it's a great way of putting it. And you're so right about those tricky subjects. The epics have actually approached them in their own way, whether it's sexuality, whether it's orientation, whether we're talking about, like you said, loneliness, rejection. Karna is the, perfect example of that. rejection and what that led to, because the feelings were never resolved and it went from here to there.
But that's
Um,
when children
we,
connect to that. They like that. They like that you're talking about their life.
yeah,
They're not, everybody figures it out. You just have to do it. But the moment you try to tell them Ramayana padna hai because ye hamare shastra mein likha hai, they are going to just,
हाँ,
just
हमें
reject.
खुद ही नहीं पढ़ा है. I mean,
No,
forget
no,
it.
it
A lot of
doesn't.
us
No.
parents, our generation, we've not read it.
Those things don't work with any generation. They never worked. This kind of silliness,
Yeah,
and it doesn't work. I mean, it is difficult to raise a child, but if you try to impose them on anything on children,
that's worse.
they will block you out.
Shweta had an interesting question. She says that as parents, we're trying to push control and are very aware of the fact that we're constantly trying to control. I think and so, basically this came in when you were talking about destiny and the fate of a child. And so a lot of those decisions, we don't allow our children to make their own mistakes. And we are trying to control that in some kind of way. Again, can we relate that to life skills? How do we let them have control of their own lives, relating it to some of the life skills that we've learned from stories?
I think whenever they have a happy moment, you should take them aside and ask them, what makes them happy, and discuss the happiness. Try to break it down for them, especially if the child is slightly analytical. The child is not, don't put it. But if the child is unhappy, then asking the child what makes you unhappy and why is it making you unhappy. I think these conversations are what sort of I feel, and I do it through storytelling. Some do it through games. You can do it through rituals. You can do it through different ways, techniques, depending on what the child likes. If it's a physical child, they like to do things. If they're like a thinking child, they like to talk things. But I think that's the way to do it. You have to engage them. Life skills are about engaging people. And mythology is one tool. There are many other tools, but this one tool to engage. Also, because one thing you owe your children is to pass on culture. Because you can give them education, you give them food, you give them education, but you have to pass on culture. They can't go and one day say, you know what, I don't know where I came from. If you are from a Marwadi family, do they know what does it mean? Or from a South Indian family, it's with the cuisine. No, I'm so lucky. I suddenly realized I raised in Bombay, but I do know Odia culture because my parents carried Odia culture with them in the form of food, in the form of language, in the form of stories. If they had not done that, I would have been completely cut off from that. And I think that is one thing on which I put a little, premium on. I tell parents, if you are from different communities, your husband and wife are from different communities, you owe it to your child to tell them, that this is what we bring to the table. Your father was raised in this way, and the mother was raised in this way, and I think the child has to be exposed to culture because that's a gift you give them. Whether they follow it or not, I don't think we should control. And I think at the end of the day,
they will follow it.
they may,
when they grow up.
I think parents need to grow up at one particular point when they realize that children take their own decisions and they figure it their own way of negotiating with our tradition. And they will figure, and sometimes they may unfortunately reject it, but sometimes they may embrace it. Sometimes they may embrace it in a very negative way. And you might be surprised and shocked by it. But I think that's that journey. And I think that our growing up is to realize that they have grown up. So that's
right, yeah, that's a lot of learning for sure. Yeah. I wanted to also talk about the illustrations in your books, and you're a fabulous illustrator. We love the visualization that you create of the stories, but these illustrations are drastically different from what we've been culturally used to, whether it's Amar Chitra Katha or popular television and movies and things like that. Was there a reason why you wanted to create a different imagery, or is it just something that you found interesting and therefore you did it?
See, the thing is, I used to see Amar Chitra Katha, and I don't know, intuitively, I found it very repetitive. The whole of all the women dressed the same way. The color. I knew that chariots couldn't be that way because there were no roads of that form. Everybody dressed in a particular way. The costumes were in a particular way. The rich men dressed in a particular way. The poor men dressed in a particular way. The diversity was not there in the costumes. I didn't find them enough. And therefore, and I saw that there were different drawing styles in India. There was the North Indian style, the South Indian style, the Pahadi style. I
Right.
miss that. And sometimes I would miss the idea, sometimes they would sort of, we were stuck with these ideas. Like I wanted to experiment with Ram having a mustache. I wanted to experiment with, who said Ram doesn't have a mustache?
Right.
I wanted people to wear different kinds of clothes. I wanted perspectives to change because I saw this in art. I did see this in Chitrakati paintings. I saw this and I knew that most people were not familiar with it. So I thought the visuals also should help children break away from a standardized photographic.
Stereotype.
Yeah, and there has to be different ways of looking at the horse, different ways of looking at the elephant. That's what Cuba. If you study art, if you study Picasso, when you study Monet, Impressionism. So how do you expose children to that? You have to expose children to art, and art, whether it's color, line. For me, so I use a lot of cuboid styles. I break a lot of things. I force perspective to change. It just wakes up your head. It sort of makes you think. And for me, it's a diagram, really. As a science student, I realized I understood better when I would have text and a diagram. As a student, when in medicine, you have to study heart, so you have to draw the heart. And there were these textbooks like Chaurasiya, which would do these two-dimensional drawings of three-dimensional objects. And I realized that that's how to explain mythology. Vishnu ka chakra hota hai, to chakra kaise dikhta hai.
Right.
I wouldn't go into details. I would just say, okay, this is the chakra. So if you see my drawings, are very stark. They don't have too much of detailing in it. I want people to
They're very effective.
Yeah, I mean, now I realize they're effective, but initially I just did it because it was a doodle. Please, my first publisher thought that they were not good and they should not be published at all.
Really?
Yeah. He was like, nahi, ye sab nahi chalega, because for him God looked as if Raja Ravi Verma has painted them. And
Correct. Yes.
so you see that people, in those days people thought in a particular way, and I had a different way of thinking. And once it became popular, then people started saying, you know what, this is also a different way of looking. And also lines of how should women be dressed and how much jewelry to put on women and how much jewelry to put on men. It forces you to think these things, makes you think. I've done a whole series now on Mohenjo-daro and the Harappan work which will come. It's only for children and it's again artwork, just to make people realize what those seals are talking and how they look. And I think the visual is as powerful as the textual. And
Right.
you have to work on both mediums. Our brain sort of takes it up very rapidly. That's why we made those epically cards, because the visual is what we're playing with. And then we have text is also there, but visual is very important. I play a lot of importance to the visual.
I think it's a great idea to gamify these kind of stories. So basically just for engagement, it's not just engagement, it's also a lot of learning, the way we were talking about it all through this discussion. So when you say cue cards, I mean, how does that
That's
work
the whole
exactly?
memory games, and then you have these memory cards, memory games. Then you have, as I said, Ludo. The whole idea is, I think the ancients also thought about it, right? Why did Ludo come into the picture? Why did Snake and Ladder come into the picture? How chess came into the picture? So we are, I said, okay, I want to engage, because initially I wrote books, I did the drawings, I gave the lectures. I said that what new can we do? So we said, okay, let's merchandise and posters banate hain. Young people ke liye, let's do something else. So I'm constantly thinking of tools that parents and children and adults can use to how to make Indian culture cool. When you go abroad, Japanese culture is cool, Chinese culture is cool. You go to Europe, European culture is cool, Conan the Barbarian is cool, Harry Potter is cool, and Hogwarts is cool. But our politicians have really made Hinduism very. Most children don't find it cool at all, or they see it cool in a very aggressive, combative way. I wanted to be cool in a very cool, in a simple way. It's fun way, because I think Indian method is leela, fun, have fun.
So, yeah, in fact, that brings me to Tanmai's question. Tanmai Gowda wanted to say, was asking, why is the word mythology to be used? She believes Hinduism is an art of living. Mythology is the wrong word while narrating so many God stories. So here comes that whole dilemma of, am I pushing religion? Am I pushing culture, mythology? Where are the fine lines, and are there any? Is it just all merging into one another?
What has happened is, we have most of our textbooks and the books that parents read have not updated themselves in the 19th century. That's what has happened. When somebody says that mythology is equal to fiction, that means they are still referring to 19th century books. We are in the 21st century. That means 100 years have passed. In these 100 years, we have realized that The word religion basically means monotheistic mythology. So where there is one god, people use the word religion. Where there are many gods, they use the word mythology. When there are no gods, they use the word atheism. And then people say, oh, atheism is better than monotheism is better than, everybody has their own little school of thought. But basically, these are all different ways of controlling people. So some control by saying, oh, I don't believe in God. That's a control trick. Because you believe in God, I want to dominate you by saying I don't believe in God. Somebody says I believe in one God, I say, but I believe in two gods. Somebody believes in two gods, I say, but mere paas 5 God hai. So, these are all ways of control. So the studies what is called post-structuralism and postmodern thinking. These are all power games. And therefore now we use these words that the way I explain to people is that fact is everybody's truth, which is based on measurement or evidence. So fact is everybody's truth. Fiction is nobody's truth. Myth is somebody's truth. Because I think there is God doesn't mean everybody has to agree with me. If I believe in Jesus, doesn't mean you have to believe in Jesus. If I believe in Muhammad, doesn't mean you have to believe in Muhammad. That's the fight which is happening in France right now.
Yeah.
I value one idea, but others don't value it. And in a diverse world, there'll always be people who will find Ganesha funny. Abhi, somebody will make fun of Ganesha, I'll start crying. ठीक है यार, उसको मरा करने दो, क्या फर्क पड़ता है? It makes no difference to me. In mythology, there are 2 characters. There is, you must have heard this fairy tale called Princess and the Pea.
Yeah.
She was a princess. She's such a big princess that even if you put a pea under her 20 mattresses, she can't sleep. So it's an oversensitive. I call her Princess Matri. Because वो मटर के नीचे वो थोड़ी भी चीज कुछ बोल दोगे तो रोने शुरू हो जाती है. छोटी-छोटी बातों पे चिल्लाना लगता है. Oversensitive. And there's another princess called Princess Jwalamukhi. She can walk through fire, nothing happens. I think we should make our children a little bit in the direction of Jwalamukhi.
Choose which princess you want to be.
So mythology is somebody's truth. Uska sach hai, mera sach hai. And these truths change over time. I believe in Ram.
Yes.
I believe in God. Like somebody that he told me, but Devdutt, Ram is history. I'm like, first, is there evidence?
No.
So I believe it is history. Good for you. Good for you. Your wish. तुम्हारा सच है ये. मेरा सच नहीं है. Scientific सच नहीं है. वैज्ञानिक सच नहीं है. But it's your truth. I respect your truth. See, the world of binary, that this is true and false, 1 and 0, very British, very European, very 19th century. We have to outgrow. But the biggest lesson I can give any parent and any child is get out of this binary mindset. It will ruin your life. Have this idea of fuzzy logic. ये तुम्हारा सच है. ये मेरा. I believe in it. So it's okay. It makes sense to me. I want to go and water the tulsi plant every day. You find it funny. मुझे करवा चौथ करना है. Somebody will say, don't do what is this karwa chauth nonsense. I want to do it. What's your problem? So every parent, in a parent discussion, somebody will say, I don't believe in birthday parties. Good for you. You don't believe it. I do. So we all have different belief systems. That is the world of mythology. Faith, belief, which is not rational. It is not rational. It is not logical. It makes me feel good. So you'll have people who, when, they read the Granth Sahib regularly, it calms them down. It's better than going to a psychotherapist. It's cheaper. So let them do it. It's cheaper. They sit down, they read a book, and they're happy, and they can deal with the problems in life. So that's what that's what mythology is all about. Mythology is somebody's truth. And Ramayana is somebody's truth. And Bible is somebody's truth. Quran is somebody's truth. You learn to respect it. You'll learn how to deal with arguments. You will learn in families, jab baith rahe hain and we have an argument. Then if you use this framework, is it everybody's truth? Is it somebody's truth? It's nobody's truth. Then you will be able to handle a very tense situation in the family also. Let's say your sister-in-law falls in love with someone and your mother-in-law is shouting that ye kya ho raha hai. You'll see 2 truths at work because somebody says that I like, somebody says this is not possible, and there's a clash in the family. And that is because we don't respect each other's truth. We are not trying to negotiate with each other's truth. So mythology is that space. Other people's truth. My truth, which other people don't understand. So that's the way the word myth is. If somebody tells, again, be very careful, especially Gurujis who read only 19th century books. And trust me, I have enough experience of that. Because if somebody reads, I'll give you an example. If somebody reads Swami Vivekanand, please remember, Swami Vivekanand did not know Harappa civilization existed. Because he died before it was discovered. So you should know his books are 1911. So his book, he wrote more than 100 years ago. So it is not up to date. He's not familiar with feminism. He's not familiar with gender studies. So he would be shocked at some of the ideas that we are talking
Yeah.
today. When boys and girls are in live-in relationships and parents don't even blink, and they're like, okay, maya zamana hai. 100 years ago, tried doing that. They would have heart attacks.
Context.
Context, dunya, desha, kala, guna. Place, time, and people have changed.
Place, time, and people. Yes.
Yeah, that's always is changing. So we have to be careful of the books we read. Always check which year was it written, when was it written, by whom was it written. If a man is writing the book, you really think he'd be sympathetic to women? I mean, very, very few men that I have seen, they'll be very patronizing, but patronizing is not the same as respect. So, I know, I grew up as a gay man, and I never expected any Guruji to be friendly or understanding because they knew nothing about the gay world. And they would give me these answers that would make me laugh because I'm like, first of all, you're celibate, which means you don't even have sexual experience. And now you're going to tell me what is a homosexual experience. I mean, the most funny thing in the world, they would give these advice and I'm like, oh my God, this is so, tum stick to Bhagwan, Bhagwan ke upar baat karo. Tumko aage bedroom ke upar mat jao tum. So it used to be too funny, these things. And and that's how my knowledge emerged because I realized not everybody knows everything. When I want philosophical understanding, I would go to a Guruji and he would explain beautifully Mimamsa, Vedanta. But if you ask him about anatomy and physiology, he can't answer.
Yeah.
That I'll go to a medical doctor. If I want to understand about sexuality, I'll go to someone else. So somebody's truth and somebody's knowledge and somebody's expertise.
What a fabulous explanation. I think this is it. This is the crux of it. And it's an important lesson for us to take to our children. There's fact, there's fiction, and there's somebody's truth. I think it's probably the easiest way. We all struggle with the vocabulary, and you've put it perfectly for us. I know we're running out of time, but I will not, be able to end this without asking for a few stories from you. Your favorite stories when you are talking to young children, of different age groups, when you're talking about life skills, life lessons and all, please do tell us which are your favorite stories that you like to use.
So it depends on the mood on that day or if I've read something on that day. So, I'm obsessed with folk tales now and folklore more than because they're not written easily and not easily accessible. See, accessible stories like Ramayana, Mahabharata, everybody can read. But I like to tell things when I meet people, stories that they've not read. For example, there's a story when the Ram Setu was being built between India and Sri Lanka, they say, or Lanka. It was placed. They would build these stones across. The Nala and Neela were the two brothers who were involved in the architecture. They built this bridge, Ramasetu. And when Hanuman brought a rock, what Nala did is he extended his left hand to collect it. And Hanuman didn't like it because he says, main kuch de raha hu, so have the courtesy to use both your hands or use your right hand. Because if somebody gives, in our country, when you give something, people expect the right hand to be used. Right. It's considered the good hand. And, we eat with our right hand and we wash ourselves with the left hand. So there is this kind of a division in our minds.
Correct.
He used the left hand and he got very angry until Jambavan, the monkey, came and said that, look at it from the world. Hanumanji, aap to bahut mahan hai, very good, but you have never built a bridge. You have never been a mason. You have never known how masons function and they have to work efficiently. So in order to work efficiently, they receive goods from the left hand and they pass on with the right hand. So they can't have your rules of right is good and left is good for them both. They're Sabyasachi. Sabyasachi is ambidextrous. They use both their hands. And therefore, for them, the left hand is as important as the right hand in the context of masonry, in the context of stonework. So they took, and so don't think they were insulting you, they were doing their jobs. So learn to see the world from the other person's point of view rather than becoming Princess Matri and getting upset because somebody used, so Hanuman said, oh, that's a point to learn that he is doing his job. And I have to learn that he sees the world very differently. So the simple story of left hand and right hand is explained, and you can have a lovely conversation with your children on stonemasons, on left hand, right hand. Why is right hand better than left hand? Which hand do we use? And lefties will have a lovely time with this conversation.
I was just going to say, what do we tell the left-handers?
That's somebody's truth. It's not everybody's truth. It's somebody's truth. And Hanuman also had to learn this lesson from Jambavan. So I thought this was a story that, people can carry and That's how you tell a story. You tell the story, but with the story, you don't give a lesson. You said make the person feel. Feeling is the magic. If you're telling stories, I'll give you all a few tips. One is, the story is not just the plot. The story is not just the character, which is the Western style of storytelling. You have to tell the emotions of the characters, the senses of the character. What are they seeing? What are they smelling? What are they tasting? What are they touching? What are they feeling? All those things, when you tell and you show the world from each one's perspective, the child, it's a three-dimensional experience. They enter the story. So that's why you say the water was like this and this, and you help the child enter the world of Nila, Nala, the building of the bridge, and the waters between them, and then Hanuman standing over there. What is the color of Hanuman at that time? Is he tall or is he short at that time? What does the grass smell like? Is it raining? So is the smell of grass? So you help the child experience and expand his imagination through storytelling. That's the trick of storytelling.
Awesome. I mean, I wish we could just keep this conversation going on, because I know this is exactly what parents need to hear and we want to hear. But I do understand we have a issue of time right now, and you do have other engagements. We will definitely request you to come back on Momspresso once again, and we'll have many, many more questions for you. But for now, Devdutt, thank you so much. This has been an absolutely wonderful discussion. So, but yes, we will continue this at another time. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you.